Hello Booktube, welcome to Lizziefaye Loves Books. I'm Elizabeth, and a few weeks ago when I was in the hospital with my daughter, I was able to watch some videos during that time. If I wasn't reading, then I would watch some videos, especially if I was doing something with my hands, like eating or whatever. So while I was watching this one particular booktuber, I started thinking, wow, I wish they had done this. And if they had done this, it would have made this video so much better. And it sort of started me thinking about several things that I wish booktubers would do. Now, they're not deal breaker things. Most of these are things that I just think would make videos better overall on Booktube if most adhered to these things that I wish they would do. These are just my opinions, but tell me if you agree with me on any of these, or you know what? Tell me if you don't agree. That will be just fine too. I love when people feel the freedom to express their own opinions, and that's one of the great things about Booktube in general, is we can have a free forum here, and hopefully most of us feel free to express our opinions about books, about anything. So let's get started. These are 5 things that I wish booktubers would do. And the first thing is that I wish booktubers would either hold up a book or put a picture in their video of what the book is the whole time they're talking about that book. Now, I understand that sometimes books are heavy, thick, big, and you might not want to hold up a big, thick, heavy book the entire time that you're talking about it, or maybe you just feel awkward doing it because it feels like, you're doing a commercial. But it really is helpful for the viewer if you have a visual aid the whole time you're talking about it. If you have the software to be able to post a picture in your video, then by all means do that. I personally don't have that kind of software, so I am a book holder, and I do usually try to hold it up the entire time. Now, here's why. This is what happened when I was watching this video. I was eating, I believe. Like I said, I was sitting in the hospital room, and I have kind of one eye on my daughter, and I'm eating, and I have a video playing while I'm eating. And when someone mentions a book, if it's something you haven't heard of, you don't necessarily notate the title or the author in the beginning, even though that's usually when they say it. But as they begin talking about the book, sometimes it starts to sound more interesting, or it starts to sound like something you really do think you want to read. And at that point, you realize, I don't know what she said the name of it was. I don't know the author's name. And if they're not still holding it up or have a picture here, you have to go back through the video to find it out. And that can be kind of a pain to have to do. And interestingly enough, later, after I was already home, I was playing some YouTube videos on my phone, and I had my phone in my pocket while I was doing some housework. And a different booktuber this time was talking about a book, and again, it didn't register what the name of it was until they started talking about it, and I thought, ooh, I wonder what book that is. So I pulled my phone out of my pocket, and it was just the booktuber talking, and they were not holding up a book or anything. They didn't have a picture, and I thought, oh, here we go again. So I'm scrolling back through, and the interesting thing is this particular booktuber did have the software capabilities of putting the picture up. So they put the picture in the video, and it only stayed up for a few seconds, and then it faded away, and they kept talking about the book. To me, it seems like it would be just as easy to keep that on the whole time you're talking about it. I know it would be helpful for the viewer. I can't be the only one. In fact, I know I'm not the only one, because I mentioned briefly this issue the other day in a video, and at least one person said, you're not alone. I like to see the visual aid too. So thank you for that validation. So anyway, just if you're a booktuber, if you don't want to hold it up the whole time, if you can't put a picture up here and you don't want to hold it the whole time, then when you get done talking about that book, hold it back up one more time and just say the name and the author. Or if you don't have the book to hold, just say the name and the author again one more time so that people don't have to go back through the video to try to find out the information. I think that would work, and that would be a helpful thing. So another thing I think would be helpful for me anyway, that I would love for Booktubers to do, is if you're talking about any kind of romance or, well, really any fiction book, tell me the steam factor, because there are graphic romantic scenes even in mysteries sometimes, and it's always good to know going in how graphic it's going to be, especially if you're listening on audio, especially if you're listening like in your kitchen on a CD player like I used to do. I still do actually sometimes. You know, if it's in my ear, it's not as big of a deal, although I really like to know ahead of time if there's going to be a lot of foul language, and I like to know if the book is going to be very steamy. I don't want, you know, one of my kids to just pick up a book and go, wow, what are you reading, Mom? You know, I want to be able to know ahead of time what I am getting myself into. So that's not to say that I don't read books that have graphic content. It's not my preferred thing, but I like to, like I said, I like to know ahead of time. So if you are talking about a book and you're trying to get me to read it, let me know if there's foul language and if there is adult content. That's pretty much it. Or how violent it is too. That's always helpful to know. And just a little note about trigger warnings. I think it's interesting when people will say, oh, and this book is full of trigger warnings. No, I think what you mean to say is that as booktubers, we are warning you, the watcher, that there are issues in this book that could trigger your own issues. Okay, there's not trigger warnings in the book. We are giving the warning that there's issues that could trigger you. So, just so you know, it's just gotten to where it's so common for people to say, this book has trigger warnings. Number 3 is do your homework. First homework that I wish booktubers would do before they start filming is learn how to properly pronounce authors' names that you're going to be talking about. I don't know how many times I hear authors' names mispronounced, and there's no need for it. There are plenty of videos and other resources that tell you how to correctly pronounce that author's name, and you can find those. I'm going to do a whole video on just that, but just please do your homework and pronounce authors' names correctly. I mean, think about it. There is no other word sweeter than the sound of your own name, and if it's pronounced incorrectly, then it's disheartening. So let's do that service for the authors that we're talking about and at least pronounce their names correctly. The second part of do your homework is to summarize the synopsis. I really prefer not to hear someone read the back of the book, and there's plenty of resources, you know, where I could find out about a book on Goodreads if I want to find out more, Amazon, things like that. So I prefer if booktubers would just say a sentence or two about a synopsis and go on from there. You could even just read one sentence or two, but do it in the context of that you're telling me what it says on the back of the book, rather than trying to summarize it as if to make it sound like you've read it already, because that's not really good either. If you haven't read the book, you shouldn't make it sound like you have. But let's say, for instance, if I'm holding up this book and I say, this book is Happiness Key by Emily Richards, it says on the back that it's about 4 women who think they have nothing in common, and just go on from there. So just something as simple as that. You don't need to read the whole thing, and I would really rather that you didn't read the whole thing. Just, you know, say a sentence or two. It's much quicker and faster. It holds my attention more if you just do something quick and go on from there. I will say this though, if you are going to read the whole back of the book, read it ahead of time. Don't try to read it cold, because it's not really fun to watch people stumble over the back of the book, especially when you'd rather not hear it read to begin with. So that's just my preference, but I would say summarize what's on the back of the book, or just read me a sentence or two, and I think that will be plenty. So number 4, and this one is definitely my personal preference. A lot of you are not going to agree with this one, I know, but I prefer that booktubers keep it clean. That's really because I don't like foul language to begin with. but our computer is on the kitchen counter where it can be heard by the whole household. And if I am watching a video and they start spewing the F word, I am running as fast as I can to get over there and get it turned off, because I don't want that language in the airways of my household. I mean, my kids hear it enough at school. They're going to hear it. I know. I don't want them hearing it at home. And so if you are a booktuber who frequently uses foul language, I am probably not going to watch you as much, and I'm going to be very careful about watching you at all, because I just don't want to hear it. It doesn't mean I don't love you, because there are several of you that I do enjoy watching, but if the language starts getting bad, then I'm just going to turn it off. And usually, if I know someone might throw a F word in there somewhere, I will try to just listen to that with headphones. But even then, it disappoints me. I don't know. I don't like to be around drunk people, and I don't like to be around people who are cussing. I just don't enjoy hearing it. All right, moving on. Number 5, I'm sure I'm going to step on some toes here, and I'm sure that I also have been guilty of not doing this to the extent that I would like to, and that is do a bit of editing, or pause your video if you've got a cough or sneeze, or if you don't know what to say next and you've got to think about it for a minute. Just click the little pause button on your camera and do what you got to do, and then come back on. You really don't even owe me an explanation of why you clicked off and clicked back on, because for me, the watcher, it's instantaneous. So I don't need to know. Just do what you need to do and then come back. Now, if you are an editor and you take your raw footage and you edit it down, I would go so far as to say to edit out some of the ums, because they're just filler and they take up extra space that you don't need in your video. They create extra time, and people don't need to see you standing there thinking. So I know that I personally, when I take raw footage, I edit out about half of it, because I am such a rambler. And when I'm filming on my phone where I don't edit and I know I'm not going to edit that video, I have been known to start over multiple times because I'm just not happy. I'll get off on a tangent and I'll start rambling, and I think, no, I'm not putting this out there on the internet. I am going to start over. So that's just what I do. I'm not trying to impugn that on you. I'm just saying that's my preference, to edit out the unnecessary stuff and just keep it tight and brief and say what you want to say without rambling. Those are the top 5 things that I wish booktubers would do. Now, some of you might ask me, well, what do you wish they wouldn't do? And I'm really going to make an effort to keep this video positive. I know that some of those I gave you are really kind of negative things that I tried to turn positive, because I really think it's important to stay positive. I don't typically watch ranty videos where people are complaining about things, and I don't usually watch videos where people are talking about anything negative. That being said, when I was looking to see if anyone had done this particular type of video, that is what came up in my search, and I did watch a really good video by Harriet Rosie, and she listed off 10 things that she doesn't like for booktubers to do. She didn't number them, but I went through and wrote them down and numbered them. And numbers 3, 4, and 5, if I was going to do that video, I would probably mention those things. The rest of them, I can see where she's coming from, but they're not a big enough deal to me to like talk about it in a video or anything like that. I will refer you to that video. I will link it down below. So if you are interested to see, you know, kind of the flip side of this, you should definitely check her out. I'm sure a lot of you have already seen that video. Then there's another video that's kind of along this line, but it's tongue-in-cheek. It's a parody video that Connor O'Brien did several years ago, where he did a parody of himself and all booktubers, and did all the things that we all do when talking about books, and it's hilarious. So if I can find that video, I will link it down below as well, because it is really worth your time to watch. So that is it for this video. I hope you find it interesting. Let me know down in the comments whether you agree or disagree with any of these issues. And that's all I have for this video. I hope you are having a great day. Read a good book, and God bless you.